Hi, this is Reg Athwal and welcome to our channel. For those who are loyal fans, got another episode here of Family Business Legacies. And for those of you watching for the first time, you're going to learn a lot from our guest today. So let me give him a formal introduction for our Family Business Legacies show. Today we've got Chris Ford with us. Let me tell you a bit more about the company. He's the managing director and chair of Ford Engineering Group Limited and Ford Aerospace Limited. Chris is the fourth generation MD and chair. I hope you got that. Fourth generation MD and chair of the family business, which is now continued, grown, survived, most importantly for those of you watching here in 2020 with this pandemic situation, survived and succeeded since 1910. What a great story. The business was started by his great-grandfather, who was working for a press working business and had an accident at work that resulted in him losing the ends of his first two fingers. What a story. He was sacked whilst off sick, very unfortunate situation, but out of that came the starting of Ford & Co. with a loan from his fellow freemasons. And since then, the business has grown. It's a great story. All the other things I'm going to get into in the actual interview itself. So without further ado, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, I can't believe fourth generation, been around since 1910. I think you're a great example where for those our viewers, there's many family businesses around the world. Yeah, there's a few that get to that billion-dollar plus mark and become conglomerates, but most of the family businesses around the world are small to medium-sized enterprises. So you have around 70 employees, you've gone from one generation to the next. And you're in that SME category, which is typically businesses that are below the $50 million mark globally. But the most important thing is the legacy is continued. So we need to learn from you. What was it like for you growing up and hearing the stories about the previous generations who built Ford & Co. at that time?
No, it was fascinating, really. It was my dad's life. He was always coming in from work, talking about what was happening, and really, when I joined the business, kind of learning about, my predecessors and family members that worked in the business and the stories that came along with it, that came along with businesses, growing up during that time. So,
and what were some of those stories, Chris, about your great grandfather, the founder of this business from 1910? Great story. What were some of those stories that were shared with you?
Obviously, I think the first one, which you mentioned in the beginning, in terms of how the business started and how when my great grandfather was sacked from his job, how he started the business with a loan, how it started with the three of them, him and two friends working the presses themselves, and kind of succeeded past the end of the business that he was sacked from. I think that was kind of a big point that he said, we've done it. We've outlasted them that laid me off that time. So that was one.
So when the business started, what sort of areas was it involved in? Because I know right now, Ford Engineering Group, you're involved in aerospace, off-highway type projects, railway, automotive, I've got a list here, nuclear, and many more, with a manufacturing service as well for other capabilities around machining and press work, laser cutting. I mean, these are all niche technical areas. So when it started, what was the sort of core, and then how's it evolved since?
Absolutely. It started doing the kind of pressed corrugated rings, which were used at the time in various industries, steam, rail, and marine. So a lot of shipbuilding around the area and around the time there was use for that. So it started there with kind of one simple process of pressing and grew from that.
So for people who don't understand pressing and are not technical in the engineering world, what in simple terms, what is pressing?
In simple terms, pressing, or stamping as it's otherwise called, is a kind of, you place a sheet of metal into a press with a tool in that really comes down with a lot of force and presses the metal sheet into a product, usually a shim or a spacer, but these days it's very complex with different forms and things like that, heavily used in automotive.
Brilliant. And what countries do you operate in? Where do you provide such specialized engineering services to?
Yeah, we export around 10%, and we deal across the world. So I think on our website it's about 27, 30 different countries that we've export to on a regular and fairly regular basis, and we export kind of second tier as well. So a lot of the business that we do for UK companies is then exported globally as well. So a lot of different industries in all over the world.
Brilliant. So one thing I want to pick up on, a topic that comes up a lot with family businesses, Chris, is around professionalizing the business. There's a lot of founders and then subsequent generations that end up being in the business day to day, operational duties, responsibilities. Some will get to what I call working on the business, more of a helicopter view, involved in more strategic areas. And then you've got the typical passive board of directors, which is where's my check and where's my dividend at the end of the year. And I know with your story, tell me if this is correct or not, but from your great-grandfather to your grandfather and then heading to your father's generation, third generation, there was a level of professionalization that happened, yeah, in terms of the company having a group MD, which was a non-family member. Could you talk us through what was happening around that time to make those sort of decisions and how it impacted your father?
Absolutely, yes. So when I joined the business, there was a non-family member MD running the business on a day-to-day basis, and it allowed my father to be the executive chairman, not involved in the minutiae of the day-to-day, but helping guide the strategy and making sure that the business was kind of managed correctly. So that was, that was in place when I joined the business in 2007, and yeah, kind of it wasn't a sense where there was a lot of family members within the business in different roles and different departments where I could go to. It was kind of, my dad was the chairman. I was more involved in the day-to-day and how I kind of progressed.
So how did that work? How did that work, Chris? Sorry to come in, but how did that work with, you've got a professional group MD, you've got your father above him who's the executive chairman, you've now shown up as the next gen. Were you given clear guidelines on this is how it's going to work with the group MD and the reporting structure? How did it work with your father? Could you give us some insights into what worked and what didn't work?
Yeah, it's probably, it was quite difficult. Essentially, I joined as an employee, really. I joined as an employee who was related to the executive chairman. So
did you have a contract?
Yes, I had a contract of employment. I had a line manager. I started as a credit controller, so I was essentially 3 or 4, promotions away from being MD. So I was managed at the time on a day-to-day basis by other people. And although yes, people did probably treat me differently because they know my name and who my dad was, there wasn't anything whereby there was a known progression for me to make manager in a couple of years and director in a few years after that. It just so happened, I think, with the size and growth of the business and the requirements and kind of hopefully how I performed.
Yeah, and did you perform? What was the first year like then?
First year was interesting. I joined and was learning started a SEMA management accountancy qualification, and I started doing credit control. So ringing in the debt, that's where you learn all about business.
Was that something was quite natural for you? Because I talk a lot about DNA profiling, as you know, with the work I do, and having dream teams and putting the right people in the right role. So was that a natural strength for you and you enjoyed, or were you put into roles that you didn't enjoy so you could learn?
I didn't, I found later on that once I qualified for my SEMA and I progressed through the business, that once I got involved in the other side of the business, the sales, the production, the strategy, the management, that side, that I actually didn't enjoy doing the finances as much as probably some other people would. I enjoyed the other side of the business and the strategy and the growth and the people side of the business a lot more. But it wasn't until I kind of had that exposure that I realized that. It's when you're within finance, it's very, it can be quite isolated. But when I was exposed to everything else, it was when I found what I enjoyed and what I was better at, I believe.
So what advice would you give first gen, second gen, third generation family businesses, if they're thinking about the next generation and bringing them into the business, what advice would you give them? What tips would you give them to get it right?
I think the individuals coming in have to earn the credit and respect of everyone within the business, and to learn about the business. So starting from the bottom, I think is an absolute must, and just exposure to other areas of the business, to be able to learn and to be able to meet the people and earn the respect of the people, because that's where the success comes from, I believe, in a family business, and how we've performed.
Yeah, because you've got people who may have been in the company for 25, 30 years who've worked with the senior generation, and suddenly this next gen turns up who's been to a great business school or graduated from great university. I always use the example, has turned up with their Superman or Superwoman outfit and said, I've arrived. Dad, where's my executive office? Yeah. Is that what you're talking about? It's not about that. It's about getting your hands dirty so you win the respect from other people within the organization.
Absolutely, 100%. And having done a lot of education myself, I know there's a hell of a lot you can learn, but you don't learn as much when you're actually in there and doing it and learning it. So it's the combination of that and getting the respect of the people and the rest of the team.
What was the biggest challenge that you had the first 3-4 years in the family business, dealing with some of those professionals, dealing with the group MD, then dotted line up to the chairman, having this employment contract treated like an employee? What were some of the biggest challenges that you had?
I think it was how people treated me when I joined the organization, and it was in different ways. So you had some people that might have probably felt a little bit like that, he's coming in, he's going to take over, it's someone else's opportunity and he's just going to be giving it. And there's other people that probably thought, okay, well, he might make MD one day, I best be nice to him.
Yeah.
And just and earning that respect. It took a while to earn that respect and get people to, show people what I can do, what I am capable of, and that I will listen to them, and that I need their help, and having that mutual respect and earning that was probably the most difficult thing.
But you obviously overcome that. So what was your first win then? What was your first piece of success or an achievement that you're proud of that won those people over and you earned the respect from everyone?
I think probably one of the biggest things, and still to this day, one of the biggest projects that I've run was implementing a company MRP system, which any manufacturing organization will tell you is one of the hardest things to do. And I project managed that whole process for one of the companies, involved everyone, and kind of successfully did that and achieved what we wanted to. And there's a lot of kicking and screaming going along with it, but once we understood and it was settled and everyone knew what they were doing, that you could see the benefit to the business and what it brought to everyone. So I think that was probably the biggest.
That's good, yeah. What about cousins? I know that when you came into the business, there were cousins in the business, yeah? So what's Absolutely. That like? I mean, a lot of family businesses have sibling rivalry issues, let alone now getting to a place where you're dealing with cousins. So whoever's watching this now that has cousins in their family business, what tips have you got for them to make sure you get that right?
It's obviously they're family, so you do talk to them about everything. They still work for the business, they still work in our sales department, and they're absolutely brilliant. We really couldn't do without them. And yeah, just being open and honest and talking to them about it, and they're happy doing what they're doing now and what they've always done, and they're happy doing really whatever the business needs of them, and I listen to them and what their thoughts are on where we should take it. But they're happy, and there isn't any kind of rivalry or anything like that between them or between myself and them either.
I mean, I think that's really important. You've kept that harmony with your cousins, which is great. But sometimes when another next gen member joins a family business, and if there's been cousins who are a little bit older who've been there for some time, there could be a situation coming up, not in your case, but we've seen it with many family businesses where someone's thinking, I want to become the MD. I want to be the CEO of this group. And this next gen has come along who's been at even better business school, even better university. They may have not had those luxuries at being at great universities, but they've put hard work in and they've been very hands-on for many years. And there could be a 10-year, even a 15-year age gap sometimes. But there's the same generation, but it's like a 0.5 generation between 3 and 4. Did you have any of that with your cousins, or have you seen that in any other businesses? And if so, how do you deal with that, of picking the right person for the leadership role?
I don't think it wasn't the case with my experience and our family and the organization. It kind of wasn't the case. They were, they're happy doing their role, and I kind of progressed through the organization just through the promotions through the people that were line managing me at the time and so on. So we didn't really have that. So
they were like, thank God, Chris has shown up, so he can definitely look after all those other responsibilities. Thank God, thanks Chris for joining. So maybe it was more of a positive.
I think that's probably the case, to be honest with you. Friends of mine have family businesses as well, and they've kind of gone through that. Brothers kind of rivals for the top job and things like that. So it does cause an awful lot of problems in other businesses that I've seen. But fortunately, I never had that.
Also, what's interesting, Chris, is you're not an engineer.
No,
yet you're running a big engineering group. So where's the lesson there? Is it with next generation thinking about joining the business? Should they go down the path of learning about that industry and bringing that value, or is it better to be in a completely different area and then bring that value to the family business? What do you think?
I think you can do it either way, as long as you are committed to kind of learning the whole business. You can go through the engineering route, for example, and then learn the business management side. I decided to go through the learning the business management and the financial aspects, and just from being in the business and talking to people just for the amount of time and learning that I've been doing over the time I've been here. You do learn the engineering side. I can pick up an engineering drawing and I can understand it. I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly how we make it, but that's where the relationships and the reliance on other people comes into play. That's why you have to get people on board to kind of learn the other side and the other skill and help you develop your skills on the other side of the business.
I know one of the things that when we were doing research that came up was you're quite hot on values. And tell me if this is correct. You've established your own set of values that are working for you across the business, but I'm curious to understand, has there been values that are being passed down from first, second, third to you, fourth generation, that are still there, linked with some new values and principles that you've focused on for the growth of the business and for future generations? Absolutely.
I think the values that we use for the business now, which briefly just kind of cover, which customer focus. We're absolutely focused on what our customers want and delivering that. Openness, which I think comes from really that's one of the key ones that's kind of come down from my dad and how I like to operate and believe, with a level of openness with internally, but also with our customers. Reliability, saying we're going to do something, we have to do it. Absolutely being 100% reliable, and excellence, really trying to be the best and helping other people be the best. So that's our values. I think there is a thread that's come down from the previous generations, from my dad, how he liked to operate. I think during a period when my dad was executive chairman and there was a non-family member MD, the values of the business were reviewed and they kind of became a little bit of the generic, textbook values of an organization and didn't really mean a lot, which is why I think, what I've taken the values and really probably taken some of the old values and what they meant and what we believe is the family and that family business side and put that back in and made that visible and told people that's what we expect, and getting them to buy into it.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. And I noticed with those 4 customer, you mentioned openness, reliability, and excellence. There's an acronym there, CORE. Yes, easy to remember.
Yeah.
Okay. But we'll start with the core. I like that a lot. So how does that show up day to day then? Can you give us some examples on whether it's leadership team, management team, the employees, cousins, other family members? How does customer focus show up every day within your culture?
We promote it a lot. It's within our values, our introductions, all of our training, our one-to-ones and appraisals. But we just, we talk about it a lot in terms of how can we delight that customer? Are we making sure that what we're doing today is going that extra mile for the customer? And that's not just the external customer, that's our internal customer. If we all do that, then the end user really gets what we want. We're a part of a supply chain where the end user really is who we're looking to satisfy.
And openness, how would that show up? Let's say I'm an employee in the company and I'm new, been around for 2 weeks at Ford Engineering, and I become part of that culture where I see people doing certain things that express openness. How would that show up?
It's having an ability to discuss our ideas, talk about our problems freely, talk about where we haven't succeeded, where we might have failed at something. If you don't have that openness, then there's an unlikeliness to learn. We have to look at what went well and what didn't, and how do we change that going forward. And that's on a personal and a business basis. We should be able to talk about that and learn from it.
Yeah, got it. That's good. And that becomes the foundation of everything, doesn't it? It doesn't matter. Strategies can change, processes can change, environments can change, circumstances, external situations like COVID-19 and the pandemic, but the values are the foundation of everything, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's what you live and breathe, and how you treat each other and how you treat your suppliers, customers, and everyone you deal with.
Let's talk about conflict. Did conflict ever come up in the past, working with the executive chairman, your father, and working with the group MD, a non-family member?
Yes, it did from time to time. There was conflict, and yeah.
Any stories? Any examples?
Just an example, really, of just a disagreement on kind of certain practices regarding sales at month end and things like that, where when I was finance director and there was a non-family member MD at the time, we clashed on that, and that it kind of led shortly afterwards to his resignation. So
right. Oh dear. Well, let's hope he's not watching right now.
No.
Yeah. So then what happened after?
It was just really, I mean, we weren't expecting resignation at all, but it was just, this is how I believe that something should be done. And it probably came from my financial background and experience, and how I believe things should be done a certain way. And he's probably disagreeing with that. It kind of petered out, and he agreed to go the way that I wanted to go. But I think that maybe stuck with him.
Yeah. And was that a good move where, someone senior like that leaves and then you as a family member step into that role? And, you've gone from family member being MD chair and above to professional becoming the MD, family member being the chair, to eventually you becoming the MD and becoming the chair. Very interesting.
Yes, it is. So at the time when that happened, it was a bit of a surprise. So my dad, who was executive chair at the time, he took a 3-month or 6-month period just to see. I was obviously the finance director and I was the only other director. So it took a period to see how the management team responded to me. And then agreed, okay, well, because he was considering potentially bringing someone else in. He saw that the team responded well to me and made that step to make me managing director.
That's brilliant. So, and when once you took that role of Group MD, what was it like again the first year? Sometimes, I've experienced this with clients in the past from our group company advisory business, where the next gen step into that senior role and people have high expectations when reality succession plans can take 3, 5, even 10 years sometimes for someone to really get used to that position, when they've also got someone senior who's looking in with certain expectations, and if that person's not doing it right, the senior members have a tendency to put their finger back in the business, and this causes lots of issues. So what was that journey like for you?
Yes, very much what you've said. It was a big step to move from FD, to MD, and running, all facets of the business. It was a big step, and like I said, it kind of took me at least a couple of years to really get my head around everything, and manage it in the way that I wanted. A lot of work gone into that, and yeah, like I said, my dad being executive chair, he did dip in and out. When I was on holiday, he was in every day, full days, and changing this, changing that. It was a little bit frustrating, but yeah, that absolutely happened, and you kind of you grow your relationships and you develop your team along with you. Yeah, maybe there was expectations that I would come in on a white horse and change everything around and do
Yeah.
everything, which wasn't the case. A lot of learning going in from
So what happens when, whether it's like your background with finance and being the FD, or maybe let's say next gen member could be a sales director and then goes to MD, or an operations role then goes there. So when you're in the MD role with a finance background, does that mean, or did this happen the first few years where you become more biased towards the numbers, which dictate strategy, versus what's happening with sales, marketing, engineering, operations, innovation, product development, growth? What was that journey like for you to eventually master and hit all those touch points as the MD?
Yeah, it was a big step, which is why it took a lot of time. Obviously, having the finance kind of bias would probably lead to, yeah, maybe a kind of a comfort area that if things get a bit tough, you maybe go back to that. Like I said before, you kind of, the other areas of the business I was really interested in, I really enjoyed, and my MBA really helped with that as well. Exposure to different areas, and it was trying to get my head around certain things, managing supply chain, marketing, all the rest of it, to the point where, yeah, I kind of sit in that camp now more than the finance, and the fact that I enjoy that more than the finance. I've got a great finance guy that does that better than I probably could have done. So it takes time, and again, those relationships to be able to ask questions and have the input into it.
And when you became the MD, the people who were in senior positions in the company, did they stick around on that journey with you, or did you have to hire brand new people and build a new team around Chris Ford, which became
yeah, absolutely. There's some that stuck around and some that didn't, and it was probably, the big difference was the way that I like to manage, and how I've needed to manage people against my predecessor, who was very autocratic and quite, he wanted to make all the decisions, whereas that's not what I'm like. I trust the people with the right skill set and experience to make the right decisions. I just want to know about them, learn from it, and help. I just try and help everyone, be the best that they can be, and then we succeed and just guide the business in that way. So that was the biggest step change. And yeah, some people didn't come along with the journey. They didn't know how to change their style to meet how I like to run things, and some did.
Great. And as you said earlier, there's no right or wrong way. Everyone has to find their way of operating their family business. Every family business has its own DNA, and everyone has their own different style as way of managing. And I think you've obviously been through that journey. So with all the learning that you've had now, Chris, what are some of the principles now in getting a family business working right and creating a legacy and making sure it continues from one generation to the next? What words of wisdom can you leave our viewers? 1, 2, 3, top 3. These are the things definitely you should do. These are things that we've learned as a family.
I think it's being able to as a family to be open and talk about everything, being able to have disagreements where and have disagreements where you can move forward with it. Me and my dad had a lot of disagreements, but we always moved forward onto the next thing, and it never stuck, it never stagnated, it never affected our relationship at all. I think having that ability, and then probably secondly is how you manage the business. It's a family business. It is different to other companies. The values are different, and how you treat people is different. And I think harnessing that, because I think going forward, young people tend to stay in roles and businesses less than less periods of time than previous. And I think harnessing that family environment can keep people on board for longer and make people want to contribute more to the business. So I think harnessing that family value and that family ethos to the company is going to be positive going forward.
That's good. And third, those are 2 good tips.
Third, yeah, try and make time to switch off from it. There's a risk when it's a family business. It is everything. You do need to remember to have that time.
That's a really good point. So for most people, it doesn't stop around the lunch table, around the dining table in the evening. You keep talking business and you're with family. So it doesn't stop. Yeah, you got to switch off. You're absolutely right. So what does the future look like? What does the next 120 or is it 100? It'll be 110. Next 110 years look like?
100. Yeah. Well, it's hopefully once we clear, get out the woods of this COVID that we're having at the minute, further growth and development of the business. We can grow and we can provide more of our services, the engineering services of the wide range of product portfolio management to numerous different industries. So further growth and exploration into potentially new markets and new areas.
So talking about new markets, if people are watching this from, I'm sure they are from different parts of the world. We have a big following and a big community, with our brand. So what countries would you like to be doing business in? If someone's watching, they could go down to the description area. The website details will be there. Chris's LinkedIn details are there, so you can connect. So what countries would you like to expand into, Chris?
Well, there's numerous different countries that I mentioned that we already are, but it's just expanding our foothold in each of those countries. So we could be doing more in the States. We could be doing more in emerging markets, Africa and the Middle East, perhaps. We do export to China and India. So kind of growing those markets. The size of the market and the potential of the market is enormous. So some of our products could be utilized in a lot of those areas.
On the technical side, for people who are interested in partnering with you, with one of your USPs, if you could educate us on, I think it's called LCT process, and
absolutely,
it's branded laminated shims. Is that right?
Yes, we have 2 different kind of rare processes, if you will, that we have and really no one else has. So our LCT is for thin gauge shims, pressing of thin gauge shims. It's a process, low cost tooling, so really you don't have to invest in a full press tool, which is normally around from 1,000 up to £50,000. We can press thin gauge shims with a tooling cost of about £50. So it's quite a cost saver and time saver for that sort of process. We also have our own Ford branded laminated shim, which is again a rare product. There's only 2 manufacturers in the UK and 5 in Europe that can manufacture laminated shim. It's called Ford Easy Peel, and it's essentially a peelable shim. So rather than have a shim set or graded spaces, to fill your gap in your mechanical assembly. We have metallic shims that will peel down to the right thickness. So it's quite unique, and it's
that's good. Again, we'll make sure the details in the description area so you can find out more about the business. And you mentioned about legacy, next 100+ years with new markets, new products. What about family? Will you carry on as the group MD or shift to just the chairman role and grooming somebody else? What does that look like?
I mean, I'm only 35, so I've got a while left to go. And yeah,
so I wasn't forcing you into an accelerated exit there, Chris.
No, I'll continue as MD and chair for for some time yet, I think. But yeah, obviously growth of the business and how how the management team structure emerges will kind of happen over time.
And what about from a family point of view, whether it's you or nieces or nephews?
Yeah, nieces and nephews are a bit young at the minute, but I'd be more than happy if when they're older they want to get involved in the business. My older brother isn't involved in the business on a day-to-day basis, but he's always more than welcome to come and help and see how he can contribute.
There you go. There's a message for him right there from Chris. And one of the things when you were young, what your father did with you, obviously your grandfather, is whenever you had school holidays and time off, they got you involved in doing things within the business. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you got any stories you want to share about that.
Yeah, it was the pocket money over the summer type thing where I'd be coming, I'd be sweeping floors, I'd be clearing out old stock, I'd be working on projects. If they had students in working on marketing projects, I would be coming in to help out, that sort of thing. So just being in and around the business, in and around the shop floor, smelling the oil and the grease and everything else. And
why is that important, Chris? Why is that important for family businesses today to do similar things? And we've done a lot of research on this and seen positive patterns where next gen want to then join the family business because of that exposure. But then there's many out there who end up going to really good schools, they end up with their own circle of friends, they travel a lot, but they don't get that exposure on the business side, and before you know it, they're 25 years of age.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the learning and being in and around it. You understand what it's about. You just by being, especially in a manufacturing basis, by being on the shop floor, by seeing what's happening, you just get to learn a lot about it, and you start forming those relationships there at that point, and you see that it's a good atmosphere. And it's an enjoyable atmosphere, and you learn at that point. It's great.
And how young were you? Your first exposure to Ford & Co, Ford Engineering at that time. How young were you?
I think I was probably about 14 or 15 when I started kind of doing the summers, just for a couple of weeks at a time. That sort of exposure.
Yeah. What about before that? Did you ever had a chance just to walk around? Were you shown the business when you were younger?
Absolutely, yeah. From being a baby or a toddler, I was brought into the office. Yeah, I think there used to be a pool table in the canteen at one point.
Yeah,
I'd be brought in and I'd be playing pool while my dad had to go to a meeting, or on a Saturday morning or something like that. If there was overtime on, you'd have to go in, bring me in, and a lady from the accounts would have to look after me for an hour or something like that. So I was always in and around the factory.
Chris, can I ask you one last question, which is, because I don't get a chance to do a lot of interviews with people who've built legacies for 110 years plus, even though I've done a few, just got to 100 years. It's very special. It's very, very special. Congratulations for being in what I call the top 3% club in the world, to get to fourth generation and beyond. Is it worth it? There's many who struggle at second generation, third generation. Very few get there, 12 to 15% around the world. Is it worth it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, I think the feel of it, and it's difficult for me to say because obviously I only experienced one generation, but it's the experience and the camaraderie that you get within a family business is definitely definitely worth it. Some days it doesn't feel like it, and that'll be the same.
Yeah. Well, that happens in anything we do. But so do you feel this deep connection and intent, if I could use that word, to make sure that everything's in place for the next 100 years?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I just believe in making it a success. There's a lot of pressure on the shoulders, from the history, and that's always mentioned and it's always there. But it makes you probably doubly desire to succeed with the business.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, it's been a pleasure interviewing you. I hope our viewers picked up a few tips and ideas and have got inspired. Don't forget to hit the like button, helps the algorithm. Leave your comments for anything that you picked up. Go to the description area if you want to find out more. If you're not subscribed to the channel already, subscribe, hit the subscribe button. We've got new episodes coming out on a weekly basis. And Chris, I really want to thank you for your time, and hopefully we get a chance to do this again in the future as you move to the next stage of your legacy building for the next 110 years. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Fred. Thank you.